Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
Welcome in. After further review, presented by Relief Windows here on this Monday. Musso in for Moscona. Moscona is done for the year. He is out of here until we get back on January. That'd be the 5th, I believe. January the 5th. That's when Moscona's back. So I'm here to carry you through the rest of the year, through the bowl game, through the start of the transfer portal, through, a whole nother week of Saints coverage, through a lot. I'm fired up to be here in for Scone here as we close out what's been a very eventful, very interesting, and never bore 2025. Taylor Sharp on the audio board, Cassie Spazzali on the video, and again, welcome to have all of you here with us. We have a ton to get to. The Saints were a winner against the New York Jets. That's 3 in a row for New Orleans. Lane Kiffin fills staff spot number 9 and is number 10 on the way as well. We'll talk about all of that. We have an expanded list of bowl opt-outs for LSU. Peter Burns is here talking playoffs. There's a ton to get to, so we'll begin as we do every single day. We'll play it later. I'll show you where it is, and we'll play it later. First segment of the show, obviously brought to you by Bud Light, Mockler Beverage. We'll start with LSU football and Lane Kiffin's staff. Over the weekend, On 3 was the first to report that Kevin Smith, the running backs coach at Ole Miss, would indeed follow Lane Kiffin to LSU and that deal was finalized. That's On 3's reporting. And it's a deal that will make Kevin Smith one of the highest paid running back coaches in the country with a salary close to $1 million, 3-year deal. A move that is not surprising, one that was really expected. You'll remember when Lane Kiffin was introduced for his introductory press conference, members of Kevin Smith's family were sitting there in the first row. This was always Lane Kiffin's plan. This is always what he wanted to do, was bring Kevin Smith with him from Oxford to Baton Rouge. This is the sixth offensive on-field assistant that has followed Lane Kiffin to Baton Rouge, joining obviously Charlie Weiss Jr., tight ends coach Joe Cox, receivers coaches Joe McDonald and Sawyer Jordan, and then the quarterbacks coach Dane Stevens, and now Kevin Smith. This hire, the term slam dunk hire is so overused that I don't really want to use that. What I will say is the hire of Kevin Smith, though, checks every single box that you could want it to. Run down the list, and we will. He checks them all. Staff continuity? Check. He was on the previous staff at Ole Miss, and he's been with Lane Kiffin for 8 seasons as running backs coach, 3 at FAU, and then 5 at Ole Miss over 2 separate stints. He had a stop-off in Miami in 2022 in between the 2 stints at Ole Miss. That is a hell of a lot of staff continuity. Check. This is a guy who played the position of running back at an incredibly high level. Now, does that mean that you can coach it? No, but it certainly doesn't hurt. You look at Kevin Smith at Central Florida in 2007. He was a consensus All-American. He was the rushing yards leader in the country, the rushing touchdowns leader in the country, the NCAA scoring leader overall in the country, offensive player of the year, all of those things. Ends up playing in the NFL for a few years too, played his way into a 3rd-round draft pick. This is a guy who has played the game at a very high level. If that's a box you want, check. How about development? This is one that I had a blast diving into earlier today, because you're going to hear Kejuan Lacey. And you know what? You should. Kejuan Lacey has been absolutely incredible for Ole Miss this year, and Kevin Smith deserves a lot of credit for that. You'll hear Quinshon Judkins. And you know what? You should. He recruited Judkins to Ole Miss. Unfortunately, he only was able to coach him for one season. That was after his freshman year. It was the 2023 season before Judkins left. But he absolutely saw and spotted that talent and brought Judkins to Ole Miss and contributed to that development. You're going to hear all of that, and you should. That's two really, really, really nice feathers in his cap. But, man, the one that sticks out more than any is probably Devin Singletary at FAU. Y'all, Kevin Smith had 1 year with Devin Singletary. That was 2017. It was Singletary's last season. He finished number 6 nationally in rushing yards per game. That was a jump of 45 spots from the previous year for Devin Singletary, who, oh, by the way, now is about to finish up his 7th season in the NFL. And you get a guy, and a lot of that's the offense. Sure, Lane Kiffin's offense going in there at FAU. That counts for this too. But, man, you talk about development at that position where you have that one solid, great year, that one elite year, and now you're 7 years into the NFL. That's a lot of development because, as they say, the NFL is not a development league, right? You got to be ready to come in and play. Devin Singletary was. That's a huge feather in the cap of Kevin Smith. So development, check. Recruiting, check as well. Out of the high school ranks and out of the transfer portal. That's massive, especially the portal part. But we mentioned found Quinshon Judkins as a 3-star who was a top 500 player, by the way. That guy turns into a second-round draft pick. Obviously, what you're seeing with Kewan Lacey out of the transfer portal here. And then in the last 2 high school cycles, Kevin Smith at Ole Miss signed a top 10 running back in each of them. Check. What's left there? He checks every single box. And more importantly, it's Lane Kiffin's guy that he really, really wanted. And that matters. Look, most everybody was sad to see Frank Wilson go. And now, in a cruel twist of fate, right, he's going to go to Ole Miss, and Kevin Smith comes to Baton Rouge. But if you were going to lose somebody like Frank with the skins on the wall that Frank Wilson had, you couldn't have found a better person to replace him with than Kevin Smith. So, I mean, the track record of success is clearly there. And now he'll bring that to Baton Rouge and join a staff that he's extremely familiar with, and he can have a lot of tools at his disposal. What does this mean for Kewan Lacey? He has another year of eligibility. Will he enter the transfer portal and follow Kevin Smith? I think that's widely assumed, but many things can happen. Many, many things can happen there. So while it's widely assumed, it's not done. Everyone's looked at a guy like Caden Durham or Harlan Berry. Do they potentially, follow Frank Wilson to Ole Miss? Sure, I guess that could happen for 1 or 2, or who knows with those guys. But, man, bringing in a guy like Kevin Smith with that record of development, that record of putting guys in the league, not to say Frank Wilson doesn't have that, because he obviously does. But that's certainly enticing for maybe guys to stick around, if not both, one. And then you'll go into the portal where, he's recruited a guy like Kewan Lacey, and you'll bolster that room a little bit more. But I look at this and I go, yeah, I mean, it's everything you could want. And, boy, it took a while to get across the finish line, but this was always the plan. And now it is come to fruition. So that is 9 on-field spots now filled for Lane Kiffin's coaching staff as Kevin Smith joins. He was in Baton Rouge already on Sunday. LSU posting the video of the Ole Miss assistants, I guess the LSU assistants who are acting Ole Miss assistants coaching through the playoff, showing up. And this was the first time that Kevin Smith joined them. I mean, they made sure to have him front and center in that video announcing this move. So close to $1 million for him a year. And we just ran through the track record. It makes a lot of sense. So this is big. The one spot remaining, obviously, along the defensive line. Hopefully we have an update on that maybe later today or before we get out of here for the Christmas break. Obviously, you saw it reported over the weekend. Sterling Lucas at South Carolina, the run game coordinator at South Carolina, is the target for LSU right now to come in and fill the role that is being vacated by Kyle Williams. But If we get anything new on that here throughout the show, we'll obviously update you then. And, of course, Tuesday as well before we get out of here for the Christmas break. But Kevin Smith, officially now part of LSU's coaching staff. One more spot to go for Lane Kiffin. All right, we're going to grab a break. Come back on the other side. The New Orleans Saints, 3 wins in a row. We'll talk about it as they just shellacked the Jets in record-setting and streak-breaking performances abound for New Orleans. That's next here on an AFR, Monday AFR presented by Relief Windows. The New Orleans Saints, they got their 3rd win in a row. That is the first 3-game winning streak for the Saints since 2022. They did so in defeating the Jets 29-6, and this was a dominant performance by the Saints. I understand it is a win over the Jets. I am not sitting here and going to tell you that New Orleans is back, that they're going to win out, that Kellen Moore is going to bring Super Bowls to New Orleans. I'm not going to tell you any of that. But what I will say is that was a very impressive win, and it had some records in it. It was a very emotional win for some veterans. We'll dive deeper into that a little bit later on. And it was a win that once again showed development and from younger players that should have you excited for the future. I kind of want to break it all down, and I want to start with the defense. I understand the Jets' offense has not been very good at all this season. I understand that was Brady Cook's second start. He's an undrafted rookie. Like, the future for him is probably not as the quarterback of the New York Jets. Hell, they talked about that on the broadcast of the game. But the fact is, the Saints held the Jets to 195 total yards, which just continues the trend of improving defense. And that's what's exciting about this Saints team is we had Ross Jackson on the show late last week to talk about the improvement in the red zone over the last, call it 3 weeks is what it was leading into the Jets game. The defensive improvement can go back now about 6 weeks, and Brandon Staley really has this unit playing incredibly well. The Jets were 2 out of 15 on third down, 195 yards in this game. The Saints had 8 sacks. 8 sacks. The first time they've had 8 sacks since week 15 of last season. In fact, the New Orleans Saints pass rush as a whole is just 2 sacks off their total from a season ago. Stands to reason with 2 games left against the Titans and the Falcons that they will surpass that. So again, just speaks to what Brandon Staley has been able to do with a Saints defensive unit that wasn't very good in 2024 and honestly wasn't very good to start this season, but they are now. And with the sacks, the 8 sacks is incredible, okay? And you saw Cam Jordan have 2 of them and get to 130 career sacks now, another milestone for him. Alontae Taylor had a sack, giving him 7 in his career, which is the most for a Saints cornerback. All that's great. But in the context of the actual game, it's when the sacks happened. The situational pass rush for New Orleans really, really stood out. Take Cam Jordan, for example. The Saints have a 9-6 lead heading basically almost into the break. New York had a chance to drain the rest of the clock, have the final possession of the first half, maybe score a touchdown or kick a field goal to tie. They're right around midfield. They've put together a moderate drive right around midfield, maybe, I'll call it 15, 20 yards from field goal range with over a minute left. Cam Jordan, sack, drive over. Saints get the ball back, have a chance for a field goal at the end of the half. It's missed, but oh well. The bigger point is Cam Jordan in that situation comes up with back-to-back sacks and gets you off the field and preserves the halftime lead. You come out second drive, or excuse me, the first drive for the Jets in the second half. Same thing with Isaiah Stallberg. It's 3rd and 6 at the 50, 3-point game, right at midfield. Stallberg, sack, drive over. Chase Young, his sack late in the game came on a 4th down, ended that drive. It was consistent with all of the sacks that it's when they happened. The Saints were really able to take advantage in situational pass rush, dominate the New York Jets up front. And a lot of that, again, is credit to Brandon Staley as well, getting them in the right plays in the right time. I thought that was awesome. I thought Jonas Sanker, once again, was phenomenal. 6 tackles, 2 passes defensed, and an interception. The interception came when this was still a two-possession game, and it came pretty deep in Saints territory. Inside the New Orleans 40 in a 19-16 game, and you have Jonas Sanker intercept the pass. He had a terrific diving PBU in the game as well. He continues to look more and more and more like a hit from this most recent draft class as the season goes on, and that is very encouraging. And especially when you paired him with a veteran, with Justin Reed returning in this game, and Reed made plenty of plays as well, you really saw Jonas Sanker flourish. I mean, he continues to impress. Then you hear Kellen Moore after the game talk about the defensive improvements and really kind of just further drive home the fact of what the last 6 weeks have been for Brandon Staley's group. Take a listen.
Brandon does an awesome job from a schematic standpoint, a preparation standpoint. Our staff is top-notch there, and our players just buying into that system, buying into playing together, all 11 guys playing together. I think one thing that stands out is, we've been able to create some havoc, a la, interceptions, fumbles, sacks, those negative plays. But I think our guys have done a really good job of kind of trying to limit the explosive plays. And I think that's what forces teams to go the long way, go 10, 12 play drives. And, I think our guys are just doing a really good job playing together.
Offensively for the New Orleans Saints in this game Sunday against the Jets, 412 yards of offense. And we could talk about Tyler Shuck and the performance he had, and we will. We could talk about Taysom Hill and the performance that he had, and we will. Olave, Juwan, all of that, and we will. But the takeaway for me offensively for the New Orleans Saints continues to really be what it's always been since Tyler Shuck has taken over as a starting quarterback. What they're able to accomplish with him running the show with the lack of weapons that are around him. And it's not just that you didn't have Devon Vele this week. It's not just that you didn't have Alvin Kamara or Kendre Miller or Devin Neal this week. It's that your offensive line is really banged up. You don't have Eric McCoy. You traded away Trevor Penning, which, you debate the significance of that, whatever, but still, you traded away a former first-round pick who was starting for you up front. Kelvin Banks, I thought, had a really rough day against Will McDonald this past Sunday, but you know what? He's been pretty darn good throughout the majority of the regular season. And yet, Kellen Moore, who has had to listen to criticism about his play calling, and rightfully so in some instances, I thought called arguably his best game of the season against the Jets. Because what's the one thing we heard about Kellen Moore throughout the coaching search process and very early on when he was hired? His greatest strength is his ability to adapt to the pieces that he has on offense. And I don't think that has been put on any better display than it was Sunday. You didn't have Devon Vele. Okay. You see very much increase in targets to Chris Olave and to Juwan Johnson. You need that big body guy over the middle. Juwan Johnson filled that role perfectly fine for you. 25 of the 50 passes that New Orleans threw went in the direction of Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson. But also, you had a drive in that game. It was in the second half for the Saints. Or excuse me, it was in the late first half for the Saints where Mason Tipton had a ball thrown his way. Jack Stoll had a catch. Foster Moreau had a catch. It was call them secondary guys in that situation to Olave and Juwan Johnson. And all that resulted in was Tyler Shuck throwing for 308 yards, which, by the way, is the first 300-yard passing game for the New Orleans Saints since 2023. He didn't turn the ball over for a second week in a row. The efficiency is there with Tyler Shuck, and he continues to just further solidify him as the quarterback going forward. I'm not telling you he is the franchise quarterback, but he's the quarterback going forward, and he has earned the right to have next year and see what comes of that going forward if you're the New Orleans Saints. But, man, he looks awesome. He now further strengthened his stranglehold on the rookie lead in terms of wins by a quarterback. That's now 4. He started 7 games, and the Saints are above 500, 4-3. You've seen him lead comebacks, and now you saw him author really a dominant performance against the New York Jets. So another awesome day for Tyler Shuck. The run game. What were you going to do with the running game? No Kamara. Devin Neal's out. Obviously, Kendrick Miller's been lost for the season. You have Audric Estime, Ethan Hull, right? Well, you did two things. One, you threw the ball 50 times and only ran it 25. I mean, you threw the ball. Your numbers in the passing game were skewed, and it worked out. But you also had a banged-up Tyler Shuck, who had been a huge part of your running game. Taysom Hill. Finally, Taysom Hill in the Kellen Moore offense. It was odd because it kind of felt like, man, they really struggled. Kellen Moore had struggled. That's what it felt like to get Taysom Hill involved to the level that, every coach has, and successfully, I might add, in Taysom's 9 years with the Saints. And boy, it was just on full display. 16 touches not at the quarterback position, and then a bomb of a touchdown pass to Olave to put an exclamation point on the victory. He was your leading rusher. Taysom Hill also in the ballgame. With 42 yards, I should say, rushing. Also in the ballgame, Taysom Hill finishes the day on the ground, with 42 yards off of 12 carries. He became the first player in the Super Bowl era with 1,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards receiving, and 1,000 yards rushing in his career. He should be a Hall of Famer. I don't really think that is debatable anymore at this point. He was absolutely awesome and was very emotional after a game, what could be his last. Again, we'll kind of talk on that a little bit later on in the show. But, man, you had to like what you saw from Audric Estime as well in there. And then there's Charlie Smith. The Saints scored 2 touchdowns in this game. Charlie Smith made 5 field goals, which, by the way, ties a franchise record to just continue the trend. He was 5 out of 6, and his only miss was from 61, and he had plenty of leg on that thing. It was about halfway up the upright. The accuracy was just off. Okay, that'll just come with more repetition there. But he's got the leg, and if he ever figures out the accuracy from that distance, Charlie Smith is going to be deadly, and he rewarded the Saints with those 5 field goals after getting a 3-year deal on Saturday. Young talent, veteran shining, everything kind of pointing in the right direction, and a 3-game win streak. Bravo. Yeah, the Jets stink. They do. They're the worst team in the NFL, and they're the worst franchise in the NFL, and I don't really think that last point's arguable. But sometimes there is something to be said about going out there and dominating a bad team like you're supposed to. And I don't really think you could look at this and say the Saints were supposed to dominate the Jets, but they did. And that's encouraging for the future. Doesn't mean all's well that ends well, but it's encouraging, and it's another step in the right direction. And they'll have a chance. They'll have a chance to win 4 games in a row for the first time since 2020 on Sunday when they face the Tennessee Titans. And the Saints have opened up as a slight road favorite in that ball game against the Titans. All right, welcome back in after further review here on a Monday presented by Relief Windows. Musso in for Moscona. We're going to go around the SEC here in a few minutes, but we all know transfer portal, Lane Kiffin, synonymous, hand in hand, right? Fits like a glove, all those things. And he's going to have to do a lot of work in the transfer portal to build up a team capable of competing for a college football playoff spot at LSU next season. One of those positions at the forefront is quarterback, right? Garrett Nussmeier's out of eligibility. Colin Hurley has already entered the portal. What's going to happen with Michael Van Buren? We don't know. That's not, no decision has really been made on that, and probably won't be until after the bowl game, as Van Buren's going to start in that game, obviously, for LSU. But that's a position that LSU is going to be very low on numbers on. And you're going to need somebody to come in and be the starter. I don't think many people look at Michael Van Buren as the slam dunk starter right now for LSU. So you're going to need somebody. Could that be Trinidad Chambliss? Sure. We'll see if he enters the portal, if he gets an extra year of eligibility, if he stays at Ole Miss. Regardless, it will have to be somebody. But before you even get to that, you also are going to need numbers. So yes, you need someone who can come in and be your guy, that Lane Kiffin wants to be his guy, and be the starting quarterback for the LSU Tigers. But you need numbers. That brings me to this new addition to the transfer portal here on Monday. And it's a former LSU target. It's Bryce Baker. If you don't remember Bryce Baker, he was a commit for North Carolina in the class of 2024 after Bryce Underwood decided he was going to go to take $12 million at Michigan and flipped his commitment from LSU. LSU got in on Baker late. But he was kind of ripe for the picking because Mac Brown had been let go at North Carolina. There was a coaching change there. Obviously, Bill Belichick would get that job. Penn State, LSU, they were the ones really pushing for Baker's services the hardest, so much so that he delayed his decision from the early signing period to the traditional signing period. Ultimately, he would end up at North Carolina. He did not see the field at all this season. In fact, he ran fourth string behind a fellow freshman quarterback. But he could check a box that you need as well. And someone who has 4 years of eligibility left, has all the talent there. He's a 4-star guy, a top 65 recruit in the country, regardless of position. And who could come in, sit in Lane Kiffin's offense maybe for a year, and then potentially be the guy going forward. But he certainly checks numbers. Y'all, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss took 3 quarterbacks out of the portal a year ago. In the last cycle, they took 3. This is not a 1 quarterback deal for LSU. And if you're looking for a bona fide starter and then someone to potentially come in, sit, learn the ropes, has plenty of eligibility left, Bryce Baker could be that guy. And he's got familiarity with the LSU program already because they pushed for him so hard. We'll see if that's a path LSU wants to go down. Obviously, this is all hypothetical that I'm going through. But because you're so thin at that position, and because you saw the coach who's here now take 3 quarterbacks in the transfer portal a year ago, when he already had what was an incumbent starter in Austin Simmons, this is certainly something to consider, as will just about any quarterback with any type of tie to LSU that enters the transfer portal. Bryce Baker does check that box. We'll see if that's something that Lane Kiffin does end up wanting to pursue, and if that's a direction that LSU might go. I think it could be really. I think it could work really well because, again, you're going to need that guy to come and fill depth and also be able to sit there and learn under a quarterback whisperer in Lane Kiffin. All right, it's at further review here on a Monday. We're presented by Relief Windows. Of course, we have show today, show on Tuesday, and then we are out for the rest of the week. We'll be back the following Monday for at least 2 shows that week as well before heading off for the new year. And then the transfer portal opens on January 2nd, which, I mean, certain to be a huge day, I should say, obviously in the landscape of LSU and college football as a whole with the singular transfer portal window. But that's kind of a little bit of a look at our schedule. As for now, we're going to go around the SEC.
Around the SEC, bringing you the biggest news from the nation's best conference. The Alabama Crimson Tide.
Kalen DeBoer updated some injuries on Monday. Defensive tackle Tim Keenan and slot corner Red Morgan both left the Oklahoma game with injury in the first round of the playoffs. DeBoer said both of them a bit sore. It's a lower extremity for both as well, but with the extra time for playing on New Year's Day, he expects both Keenan and Morgan to be good to go for the game against Indiana in the Rose Bowl. And then LT Overton, who, of course, Alabama's been without since the SEC championship game, says he's improving, continuing to monitor is DeBoer. Definitely not ruling him out is the quote. We'll see if he returns to the Rose Bowl against the Hoosiers.
The Missouri Tigers.
Missouri is set to hire Chip Lindsey away from Michigan to be the program's next offensive coordinator. ESPN's Pete Thamel was the first to report that Lindsey has agreed to a 3-year deal with Mizzou. The details are not known of that contract yet, but it's worth noting Lindsey made 1.5 at Michigan, was set to make 1.5 at Michigan next season. He will not coach Michigan in the bowl game and will begin duties at Missouri immediately.
The Auburn Tigers.
Auburn quarterback Ashton Daniels has announced his intention to enter the transfer portal, did so on Sunday on his social media. He started 3 games for the Tigers in 2025, but the former Stanford transfer preserved his red shirt, sitting out the rest of the games this season, and now he will look elsewhere. He stepped in for Jackson Arnold in the win over Arkansas. Then started Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Alabama. Totaled more than 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in the overtime loss to the Commodores. This leaves Auburn pretty thin as Jackson Arnold also set to enter the portal. Deuce Knight, the lone quarterback remaining in Auburn's room.
The Texas Longhorns.
Texas wide receiver DeAndre Moore Jr. is set to enter the transfer portal when that opens up on January the 2nd. He'll finish his career in Austin with 37 career appearances, including 16 starts. Had a breakout season in 2024 as a sophomore, followed that up by being the second leading receiver for Texas here in 2025. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining.
The Arkansas Razorbacks.
And Arkansas will lose a starter on the defensive line. That is D tackle Ian Gefford. He plans to enter the transfer portal after 3 years up in Fayetteville. Started all 12 games in 2025 for the Hogs. 25 tackles, 4 of those for loss. He also had a pass breakup. He was one of, if not the main contributor up front for the Hogs, but he will seek elsewhere. He will have 2 years of eligibility remaining. There you have it. That is Around the SEC here on a Monday edition of AFR. Got one more thing to do here in the first hour, and then we'll hit the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Peter Burns will join us at 4:15. College football playoff, round number 1 in the books. The SEC was all over it. And look, it was a really good game. And it was a really good week, really, kind of for the SEC. Alabama and Ole Miss move on. Texas A&M falls in what was just a really strange game with Miami. The game was really known more for the things that impacted it and caused it to be so strange than actually the play on the field. But Texas A&M season did come to an end. And, I mean, look, for my money, Alabama-Oklahoma was the game of the weekend in the college football playoff. I mean, again, yes, Texas A&M and Miami came down to the final play, and that was awesome. But there was just a lot of ugly football, specifically in the first half of that game. Whereas you look at this Alabama-Oklahoma game, I mean, Oklahoma jumps out to a 17-0 lead. It turns on a pick 6 for Alabama. They storm back 20-plus unanswered in that game and win it by 10. Ty Simpson, back injury and all, made some great plays down the stretch for the Tide, and they move on, even though Oklahoma's got to be sick with themselves still here on this Monday because they outgained Alabama and outperformed Alabama in just about every statistical category. But you credit Ty Simpson. He made the plays when it counted, and the pick 6 was huge. And Alabama moves on. It's really how the majority of Alabama wins have gone this season. They've had something break their way, and Ty Simpson was very efficient and very good. And that's what they've rode to victories here, so far in 2025. And they ride that to now a Rose Bowl game against Indiana here on New Year's Day. And then, of course, Ole Miss just shellacked Tulane. They did that in the regular season. They did it again in the postseason. Congratulations to them. That was a great win. Now they get a rematch against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And look, that was a dandy of a football game, obviously, in the regular season, too. One-score game, it's a shootout. You go, technically you go 2-2, but didn't you really go 2-1 if you're the SEC? You were guaranteed a loss because teams were playing each other, but solid weekend for the conference, I think, in the college football playoff. We'll kick that around a little bit more with Peter Burns, get his thoughts at 4:15. Right now, we'll grab a break, come back, close out hour 1. Next, oddly enough, we'll talk North Carolina again because really interesting hire, and I kind of like what what Bill Belichick's doing, bringing in Bobby P. So we'll touch on that to close out hour number 1 next here on AFR. So Freddie Kitchens was let go from North Carolina as the offensive coordinator. Bill Belichick has zeroed in on Bobby Petrino to fill that role. I get it. Not everybody here really cares about North Carolina, but I find this very interesting. They have no prior connection to each other coaching at all. But, Bobby Petrino has proven to be just an excellent offensive coordinator throughout his career and awesome at developing quarterbacks, whether it's Lamar Jackson, Ryan Mallett, Taylor Green, go through whatever. He has taken guys and fit them into his offense. He is incredible at adapting his scheme to the strengths of his players, and he was awesome at Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher for the 1 year, and for the 2 years at Arkansas under Pittman's staff, he was very good as well. Arkansas went from 107th to 10th nationally in yards per game in Petrino's first year, and this past season they were top 25 nationally in both scoring and total offense and rushing. as well. The reason I find this extremely interesting is because I think we're all intrigued by Bill Belichick's tenure at UNC. And I'm specifically more intrigued by year 2 because I think year 2 is the year that you can really look at this and judge Bill Belichick and if this is maybe more than he can chew at the college level. Because think back to the timeline of how this all came about. North Carolina was never going to go well for them this year. Mac Brown was not relieved of his duties until after the regular season finale. Belichick was appointed on December the 11th, 2024. There were multiple portal windows, including the 30-day window immediately after Mac Brown was let go. So you had a bunch of players just enter, not wait to see how the search goes. You had to worry about keeping the signing class together, which they did an okay job of, but they had to go through the portal when it was really picked over, in December and in January. And they tried to get a few guys in the spring, but North Carolina was basically playing with a group of 5 roster in the ACC. Now you have a full recruiting class. He'll have a fair shake at the portal. Belichick can develop talent, identify talent, I should say. And now you bring in a guy like Bobby Petrino to run the offense with a quarterback like Gio Lopez, who has another year and is expected to be back. Lopez is Bobby Petrino's dream type quarterback in there with the dual threat ability. File it away. Keep it in mind. And let's see if things don't change a little bit in Chapel Hill in Bill Belichick's second year as he has a full offseason and really makes moves to set himself up potentially for some success.